Most bankers aren't ready to help you until after their third cup of coffee. But with Central National Bank's after-hours service, you don't have to wait for the bank lobby to open to get help. You can contact us from 6 to 8:30 in the morning or from 5 to 10 in the evening, and we'll connect you to a real, live, local person who can answer questions and fix problems 7 days a week. Bank different. Bank Central. Central National Bank. Member FDIC.
You ready?
Showtime.
On May 3rd, summer starts with The Fall Guy.
Let's do it later.
Let's drink a spicy margarita.
Make some bad decisions.
Yes!
Audiences are falling in love with the most entertaining film of the year.
Fall Guy.
Fall Guy?
Fall guy.
That's what the poster said.
See Ryan Gosling and Emily Blunt in the movie critics say exists to make you happy.
Trying to make it out?
Nope.
Because I don't either. It's not what I'm into right now.
What are you into?
Talking.
Yeah.
The Fall Guy. Only in theaters May 3rd. Rated PG-13.
Support for this podcast comes from Frito-Lay and the 2023 Snack Bracket Championship. The Frito-Lay Snack It Challenge is underway, and fans are voting on their favorite snacks to crown champion. We're talking about prime-time matchups between the best 64 snacks in the land. Will Ruffles Ridges reign supreme? Can Doritos defend their dynasty? Or will Smart Food use their smarts for a surprise upset? Only you can decide. Get in on all the action for a chance to win up to $1,000 or a year's worth of snacks. Let your snacks be heard. Just go to fritolaysnacket.sbnation.com to vote and enter for a chance to win. No purchase necessary. Sweepstakes ends April 3rd, 2023. Void where prohibited. Year's worth of snacks awarded in the form of 52 coupons, each good for one bag of chips. See official rules at fritolaysnacket.sbnation.com.
Hey everyone, it's the Women's Hoops and Talk podcast with Tara and Kendyl. We are here elevating the voice of women in basketball. Kendyl, how are you doing today?
I'm good. How are you?
Well, I'm really fired up because since the last time we talked, 2 players in the NBA have gone off for 50 points in less than 30 minutes, and they happen to both be trailblazers.
It's really exciting to have them be, they're only the second and third players in the NBA to actually have done that. The first obviously being Klay Thompson. But it's exciting to have them both do it. I think it was within 10 days of each other they did it too. So I definitely, obviously from a fan perspective, I love it. But then also I love that now they're getting a little more attention just around the league, which obviously well deserved. But yeah, I think they're always in the conversation for one of the best backcourts in the NBA. And I think this definitely helps elevate them even more. And now people are saying that maybe they're the most explosive backcourt in the NBA. Because obviously if they can come out and do this back to back, clearly they're pretty explosive. So
I read that the only other teammates who have scored 50 points within 10 days of each other were Larry Bird and Kevin McHale.
Mm-hmm. And they didn't do it within 30 minutes.
No, they didn't.
Yeah, so that's even more impressive.
That was back in 84. So they did. When I went and I looked it up, I was like, okay, did they have the 3-point line? And they did indeed have the 3-point line. Now, of course, they weren't shooting as many threes, but they did have the 3-point line. But that's pretty good company to be in, I would say.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, even though, the 3-point wasn't it wasn't obviously used quite as much back then, it's a very different play style. So it's still, to be able to shoot the 3 ball today isn't necessarily easier than it was then. So it's still very impressive either way.
Absolutely. So you brought up, that they're often mentioned as the one of the best backcourts. Who, I put you on the spot a little bit because we didn't talk about this beforehand, but who do you think are, let's say the top 3 backcourts in the league right now?
The top 3 backcourts? I mean, I definitely, you kind of have to go with obviously Steph Curry and Klay Thompson. As much as I don't like to say that, I watch enough basketball, know enough about the league to know that they're definitely the best backcourt in the NBA. And as unbiased as possible in this, I truly do think that Dame and C.J. are the second best. I know obviously people will try to fight me on that, but I really think that they, if not 2, then 3, and 2 and 3 are very close. My third, though, kind of bounces around. It kind of changes. It used to be, I used to always say it was John Wall and Bradley Beal, but this season they haven't been playing. I mean, obviously John Wall is injured. He's out right now, but the time that they did spend together this season, they just weren't playing together the way that they used to. And obviously there's been a lot coming out now of saying how teammates haven't been happy with John Wall and all of that. So I think that obviously that plays into it. If you're not getting along with your teammates, you're not going to be playing as well together. But I think they're still definitely up there when they are both playing. But I think number 3 now is DeMar DeRozan and Kyle Lowry.
Yeah, that's who I thought 3. You were going to pick as number 3. Yeah. I was thinking that you might possibly want to put them up, even maybe up there at number 2.
Yeah, I mean, I think the problem with them, and this is kind of a pretty well-known thing, is that as great as they're in the regular season, they're kind of known to fall apart in the playoffs. So I'm hoping that obviously right now they're number 1 in the East. They just passed Boston, I think 2 days ago. So hopefully they maintain that, and they actually kind of maintain that in the playoffs too. They've both been playing very well, but obviously DeMar's been having a career season. So I'm hoping that they kind of maintain that through the playoffs, and they don't do what they do every other year. So.
Well, maybe with the culture change that they have, their team, supposedly undergone, it's a basketball culture change in the way that they've been playing. And it seems like, I don't know if it's exactly a system that they're playing, but they're playing a style of basketball that gets more use out of the rest of the players. So, those two are still able to, go off and score a lot of points, but they've opened up other possibilities, which might be a better style of play for the playoffs. So we'll see if they can. They know, and the thing about them is they know that's what they gotta. They know that's what it's all about.
It's no secret to them. But yeah, I think that what their new playing style, I think it really feeds into the idea of people always say good players are good on their own, but great players make other players around them good. So I think that style is what's kind of helping with that. Is their team is now getting better. And before it was, they have this really great backcourt, but they have a couple other pieces that are consistent, but they're not a championship level team. They're a championship level backcourt, but they're not a championship level team. And I think that's also kind of a similar issue that obviously the Blazers have. Like the Blazers are known for, we averaged one of the least amount of assists in the league. So things like that, I think it's when you start involving other people and you start really promoting other people and other players on the team and getting them out of kind of their normal role and increasing their role, improving their role, that really ultimately helps. So I think that's really what the Raptors are doing this year, and they're doing a very good job at it. A lot of teams don't succeed at it that quickly. Once they start doing that, it's usually kind of trial and error for a little bit, but they got right into it and have been doing really good with it. So yeah, like I said, hopefully they can maintain that through the playoffs.
Well, things are definitely exciting in the East. And while you were talking, I thought of 5 potential segues into our next topic because they're all relevant. Speaking of players making other players around them better, or speaking of the fight for the first place in the East or whatever, let's talk about what the Cavs did at the trade deadline. I mean, we were ready. I mean, people were ready to be like, you know what, this is it. I think, everybody's always like, I would never ever bet against LeBron. But if there was ever a time where I might possibly think about betting against LeBron, this is it. And lo and behold, the trade deadline comes and the Cavs, I mean, who knew?
Yeah.
What's your reaction to all of those moves that the Cavs did at the trade? I mean, you don't have to talk about every one specifically, but in general, what was your reaction to what the Cavs
It was
did?
actually really funny. I'm out in LA right now. I'm working. I'm interning at Fox Sports, or FS1 specifically, and I was actually expecting to check my phone and have some big trade happen, or at least a couple small ones or something, and I woke up to nothing. So that to me was either, okay, something big is about to come, or this is going to be a really boring day. So I got ready, went on my way, and I actually have Woj. I have his tweets on notification, and I'm about 10, 15 minutes away from work. And I get a notification where he tweeted out and said, teams are starting to let me know that like they're backing out. So a lot of the pulling out of the market is they basically saying things aren't working out the way everyone wanted. Teams are kind of giving up. So I saw that and I'm like, okay, well, it's done. The day's over. Not going to have an interesting. And I work obviously in sports. So I'm around sports fans and I'm around Lakers fans because I'm in LA. Pretty much everyone I work with is a huge Lakers fan. So never would I've ever thought that the Cavs and Lakers would have somehow made a deal. But as I park my car and I'm walking into work, I get the notification that Isaiah Thomas has been traded to the Lakers. And obviously, like, I sprinted in my work and got in there and everyone's freaking out. And obviously, like, there's the side of we have to do our job, but then everyone in there is a Lakers fan. So then people are like freaking out because that was just something we had not expected. And then as we're kind of doing, obviously we're working where my job is I help with social media. So I'm doing like making graphics of all these different things. And it's like from there, it just didn't stop. It was like every 15, 20 minutes, by the time we kind of got a hold of whatever the trade was, something new came. And we were like, oh, it's another trade. And we look and it's, oh, the Cavs made another trade. And it just every time we were like, is there another team that's going to make a trade that's not going to be the Cavs? And it seemed like pretty much every trade that happened that day was through the Cavs. So it was the most players traded on trade deadline from one team in, I think it was said like 30 years or something. Like it was some crazy amount. It was just, it was very interesting and honestly really impressive. It's not easy to make trades and then to make that many trades all within like an hour and a half of each other and then have them all be successful trades. I know a lot of people are like, oh, ultimately you just traded Kyrie for Larry Nance Jr. and Jordan Clarkson. It's like, well, yes, in a way, but at the same time, like it's clearly, I mean, it's only been one game, but it's working out for them. And it looks like it's going to work out for them. Like they're back to being the threat in the Eastern Conference. Not that even with their problems, I never had any doubt they were going to leave the East. But obviously a lot of people did. And now people are right back to, okay, they're going to the finals. So it was very impressive, but also very just overwhelming being at work dealing with that, because obviously my job was kind of revolving around it. So it was a very different experience than I'm usually used to on trade deadline, but it was a lot of fun. So
that's super cool. How fun to be down there while that was all going on. Now, what's the vibe around Los Angeles? Are they excited because they think this means that now Los Angeles is going to welcome LeBron because they cleared space for him? Is that what everybody's thinking, or is there like a more realistic take in there somewhere?
No, every Lakers fan is convinced that this summer they're getting LeBron and Paul George. So
is there a plan B anywhere, or is there there's no plan B?
Well, now what the Lakers are saying is that when they came out and said, oh, we're not looking at this summer, we're looking at next summer, because next summer the big free agents are Kawhi Leonard, Klay Thompson, Jimmy Butler, and I think there's one more. But those are the big free agents next summer.
So if they don't get LeBron and Paul George this year, then next year they're going to get Jimmy Butler and Kawhi Leonard. Yeah,
which I don't think there's a chance that they get either of them. I think the biggest chance they have of getting any of those players is Klay Thompson. I think he's their best bet, but he's not going to run a team. But I think it'll be interesting. I mean, I hope that for their organization, I hope they get someone. I hope it's not LeBron. I would be okay if it was Paul George. But I'm really hoping that I really want LeBron to stay in Cleveland personally, but it's not looking like that's going to happen. After these trades, though, I think it looks definitely more likely. I still think it's leaning more towards no, but I mean, you never know.
It was nice to see Isaiah Thomas have a good game, his first game back in Los Angeles. Are people pretty much considering that he's going to just be there for the year, or are they talking about him into the future?
Well, what I think is funny is, I mean, personally, I haven't heard a ton about that. From kind of what I have been hearing is, especially when the trade first happened, is they were like, oh, well, he's only here for half of the season and he's leaving. But then people started kind of discussing, like, kind of at my work and saying like, okay, well, who's going to sign him right now? Because what's interesting is Isaiah Thomas went from how high on a pedestal he was last year in Boston and how, oh, he's Mr. Fourth Quarter, he's the best closer in the league, he's all like, it's all these different things, to literally 2 months into this season and he's one of the most hated players in the league. To see that turn so fast was just, it was interesting, because you don't see that very often without there being a scandal involved. Usually the player has to do something. They have to get arrested for something, or they come out and they say some comment or whatever. And I think one of the big turning points was obviously the Kevin Love situation. But even then, there's a lot of people who I think either didn't really look into that or just didn't really care. Because even before that, people didn't like him. So it's interesting to see how fast that turned. And then now in LA, kind of the vibe is, okay, well, he's doing good right now, but what's going to happen when Lonzo comes back? Because Lonzo's not going to come off the bench.
Let's pivot and start introducing the guest that we talked to today, because she has an interesting perspective, kind of different from what we've been talking about, because we're going to share our interview with Ashley Williams. Ashley is a freelance reporter she's been in the Portland area covering local sports for the last few years. She writes for USA Today high school sports, and also her work has appeared on SB Nation sites Blazers Edge and Swish Appeal. But her unique perspective is that she has covered a ton of high school players, and like the elite high school players. She covers the Les Schwab Invitational Tournament and the Nike Hoop Summit. So she's talking to these guys before they've hit peak stardom. We're going to talk with her about what that's like and try to get a little bit of insight into what the younger players are like compared to these guys who we've been talking about, who've been around and have made a name for themselves, good or bad, based on, what they've done in the NBA. So yeah, let's go ahead and play our interview with Ashley Williams. So welcome to the show, Ashley. We're really glad to have a chance to talk to you today.
I'm super excited to be here. Thank you, guys.
Well, one of the things that we talk a lot about the NBA on this show, and one thing that we don't talk a lot about is what the players are like, or what these men are like before they get into the league. And as somebody who spent a lot of time covering high school sports, especially elite high school sports, we thought it would be a really fun opportunity to learn more about what some of these players may have been like when they were very young, and what are some of the unique things that the young players in the league or trying to get in the league might be facing.
Of course. It's an interesting thing, so I'm glad there's an interest in it,
Today's episode is brought to you by Cars.com. With over 2 million vehicles and 50,000 more added every day, Cars.com will match you with the perfect car for you, your budget, your life, your style. And if you're ready to say goodbye to your current car, Cars.com will get you an instant offer to cash it in. Just start by entering your license plate and get matched with a local dealer who will write you the check. So whether you're looking to buy or sell, just go to Cars.com. It's magical.
So like Tara mentioned, on this show, we really have just talked about the NBA and kind of talking to other people about what it's like to cover the NBA. But what is so unique about covering high school players?
It's funny because you get the access before they're big time. But a lot of people say, have you heard about this player, whatever, but they're not truly at the NBA status. So you do get to get the interview whether they want to or not. They're not getting paid for it. So that's the most important thing about it. But it's really cool to see them in the environment of just caring so much about their teammates and really just wanting to play and be there. So I think that's the most exciting thing about it.
Is there anything that really stands out to you about it that you've kind of learned or observed?
I mean, I've had the privilege and the blessings of being able to interview high school, college, NBA, WNBA, Olympic, at all different levels. And I think high school, they are very humble, not because they are at that point in their life where they're like, okay, I have money, I have status, but it's because they are working and they're still trying to get to the highest pinnacle that they can make. So you really see the hard work, but also still a little bit naive to what goes on. So it's really interesting to be able to be in that mix and that part of their journey.
Mm-hmm. So who are some of the bigger, more well-known players that you've kind of been able to have the chance to talk to?
I have had the privilege of covering the Les Schwab Invitational for 4 years now. It's crazy. And the Nike Hoop Summit. So the Hoop Summit is the world versus the USA team. And that's the top talent for the world and the USA. So it's hard for me to pinpoint a lot of players. You can go Ben Simmons, Michael Porter Jr., DeAaron Fox. I don't know. It's a lot of players, and it's really cool because I have a different view and perspective on those players before they do make it to the league. So it's exciting to see when they actually do make it. You're rooting for them.
Ashley, for people who don't know, can you explain a little bit about what the Les Schwab Invitational is and what the Nike Hoop Summit is?
Absolutely. So I'm a Portland native. So when you say those two things, it's like, duh, But for other people, you might not be as familiar. The Les Schwab Invitational has been going on for 22 years now. And basically, it's a highlight tournament. There is 16 teams. It's a bracket, I think it's a double elimination. So basically, there are all these teams from Oregon, but also you have probably a group of 5 teams who are out of state. So these are nationally ranked teams. And so you've had Oak Hill, you've had Montverde, you've had all these nationally teams too. And then, of course, through the years, you have players who are players that you're going to know about. Kevin Durant, Ben Simmons, kind of players like that. So it's been really great that I've covered that. The Nike Hoop Summit is a tournament. Actually, it's a game. This is my favorite thing to cover. It's the USA and the world team. And it's at the Moda Center, which is also really cool. It's a pretty big stage for these players. For some of them, they haven't been playing in anything like that before. But basically, it's a week. They come together. They practice with people they've never played with before. But it's the top talent. And then they all play in a game. So it's another showcase of the top talent in the world, really.
So when you're covering these players, obviously they're all very young and they're still a couple years away from entering the league. But do any of them ever, does anything about them stand out to you? Can you kind of pinpoint, looking and going, they're definitely going to have a successful career? Can you kind of pinpoint that?
Well, it's kind of hard. Covering this tournament, I have players who have been world champions 5 times. So it's, it's hard when you're like, oh, you're on the USA team? Yeah, well, I have been for the last 5 years. So, but there's a lot of players, you just kind of know that talent. You see it. The USA team, the format's a little bit different. The coverage in which there is they don't let scouts into every practice. There's actually only one practice scouts get to see these players. So it's very different. The world team, these are players who could be playing for a world team, their actual country team, and being paid and playing, and scouts see them all the time. So it's very different when you kind of try to, I guess, pick out talent. But, you always get that feeling of someone who just sticks out from maybe their personality, or everyone's pretty big in size these days. So it's kind of hard to say, oh, they're super tall. Everyone's kind of super tall, but there's just sometimes maybe a little flair or kind of spark in the way they play. So that's what I would say.
You mentioned...
Are there any Oh, sorry.
Sorry. Oh, can I go?
Yeah, you go.
Yeah, I'll jump
Yeah,
in.
you go.
You know me, I always have to go off the script. You mentioned earlier that one of the things that you enjoy talking about the young players, one of the reasons you like talking to the young players is because they're kind of humble and about how much they really like their teams, and especially like the Les Schwab Invitational Tournament, you see them with their entire team, so you don't see them like just as an individual there. You see how they are as teammates. Can you elaborate a little bit on what it is like to watch teams play with these high level players and how they adjust and things like that?
It's crazy. I mean, there's teams like Oak Hill who has Coach Steve Smith, who has over 1,000 wins. And you ask them, what's different about this team than your old teams? And, it's crazy to me that you have talent like this every single year. And especially when you have players like Bowl or like, it's just their talent is crazy. But then you also still have such a squad that plays in such a systematic, and they do play for each other. I've had the best players that I probably ever interviewed, like personal, like actual talent players. Whenever I ask them, how'd you get this win? Whatever the question may be, my teammates. And I think that's the most fun thing about it. I can remember when I covered Jaylen Brown at the Les Schwab tournament, I asked him, I said, you're still undecided for school and you're just out here playing so hard. Is that because you're still wanting other schools to look at you? It's like, no. He's like, I want my teammates to get the most publicity and the most looks that they can get. And it's like truly chilling. I just got goosebumps because it's like a high schooler just said that. Like, you know what I mean? So it really is amazing that they do play for each other and they really do want to win a state ring. Like, it's the coolest thing that they could do. So I think that's just the most amazing part about it.
And these are their high school teams, right? They're not their AAU teams?
No. Some of them do transfer and move schools, whether that be from parents' jobs or, just like living situations, whatever the case may be. But no, these are their high school teams. These are schools that they might not even be nationally ranked teams until that one year. So these are their high school teams.
So you just kind of mentioned, obviously talking to Jaylen Brown, but are there any other stories of players who eventually made it into the league that you've talked to before they were in the league?
I guess I'm a crybaby. I guess that's what you can put my title as, crybaby. Ashley Crybaby Williams. I remember when I was covering a hoop summit and I met Skal Labissiere. I don't know if you guys know who that player is. But he plays for the Sacramento Kings right now. But when I met him, tall, skinny basketball player, I'm like, oh, I'm sure he's good, whatever. But so the Hoop Summit, the reason why I like that format so much, it's a whole week of practices. So really you can tackle maybe 3 players a day. You can get to know and really one-on-one with a lot of these players. And that's something that a lot of people don't get to take advantage of. So that's why it's my favorite tournament. But anyways, I actually got to have a conversation with Skal about him being from Haiti and what he got away from. And, it just goes 2020, it just like makes me emotional even thinking about it. And I actually met back up with him this summer and I got to talk to him about, this is the first time this summer he actually got to go back to Haiti and throw a basketball camp. He had money to fund it. He had, the resources and everything. And it's just like, I know it's so cheesy and cliche when they say it's bigger than basketball, but it really is, because there's a lot of people who are like, oh, Skal doesn't deserve to be drafted. And I'm sitting here like, don't talk about him. Like, just because I know what he comes from and I know what he's been through. So that was one story that was just truly touching. And then you go to cheesy stories like DeAaron Fox hopping into my interview with somebody else, like just being such a clown and taking the microphone. You know what I mean? Like, there's just so many stories of just fun times, but you just really get to know the players before before they're thrown into something they've never been into before. So it's just a really cool time.
So since we are Blazers Edge podcast, we love to talk about the Blazers here. What are some of your experiences talking to any of the Blazers? I know like you've interviewed Damian Lillard, obviously, but do you have any stories from any of those interviews?
Yeah, I always have a good time talking to any of the Blazers because, I'm from Portland. So it means a lot when you do get to, I guess, get on that level with your home team. Like, I've always been a Blazer fan. So last year at the Les Schwab tournament, I actually got the chance to interview Brandon Roy, and I was dying inside just because it's Brandon Roy. Like, I just was trying to act so normal. But, I think it turned out pretty well. But he was awesome, and that tournament was great because I actually got to sit on the sideline next to Damon Stoudemire, so that was like another added nugget. So I just got to talk to him, but it's really cool getting to do that. Brandon Roy was great. He's still having a great coaching career. I'm really proud of him for just what he's become. Damian Lillard, he's become a really good friend of mine just throughout the years of covering sports and just being in Portland, and he's just such a good person. I think the last interview I did with him was actually a package on Black History Month, which it is now as well. And I know I had mentioned this to Tara earlier, but I had interviewed him for this segment for Black History Month, and it ended up being like 25 minutes. And I'm like, I got to cut this down to 3 minutes, but I don't want to because this is such good stuff. But it's just really such a treat to be able to connect with the players on a different level than just scoring 50 points a game. You know what I mean? So it's just been definitely a blessing to be able to connect with them like that.
What were some of the highlights of what he talked about with the Black History Month?
He is very proud. He's very proud of where he comes from. He's very proud, and he just wants the best for everyone in the situation that he's been in. And I think he takes things very personally, and he definitely wants everyone to exceed and to be the greatest person that they can be. And I think that's why he works so hard, because he really does want to make a path for everyone else. And that's something that I really, really respect him for, because he could just be out here just doing whatever he wants. But he really does make a point that he cares about other people. And I think that's super important. And it means a lot to me. I respect him, obviously, because he can ball it up, but he's just a really great person, and he cares about so many other people. And I think that's what he really was just reaching to me in that conversation, how he just takes so much pride in his heritage, and he just wants to make a way for everyone through Black History Month and through who he is. So I'm not sure if it was that interview or a different interview that you did with him, but I remember you talking about how it was at the end of a day. It must have been after his summer camp where you didn't really think you were going to get a bunch of time with him, but he made sure that you were there, and he saw that you were there, and he made sure to give the time to talk to you. Yeah, let me clear up that really quick. It was at one of his basketball camps, and it was in the summer, and I'm over here watching kids play. I'm having the time of my life, and then I look over, I missed the whole media thing. Like, I really blew it. Like,
so you were so into watching camp?
Yeah. Oh my God, if there was any time where I would have lost a job, this was it. Like, and I walked outside, and I was like, I'm not kidding. I walk outside, and they go, okay, that was the last question. And I'm like, so I'm walking back, and I make eye contact with him, and he's like, I got you later. And I was like, okay. So I just sat there. He did autographs. I'm not even kidding. This man did 150 autographs for these kids. I saw kids go back in line 3 times. He was just signing and signing and signing. And then finally he was like, come on. He gave me a sit down one-on-one interview. No one else got that. And I was just like, man, you know what I mean? Just little things like that. And he's always supported me. I will always support him. And that's just one thing that I can always say about him is he is real. People always talk about, I would never change, but I don't think Dame will ever change in a good way. He's very real. So
that's awesome. We'll have to link to his the interview that you posted about Black History Month. That'd be great to show that to people again, because I remember thinking it was really cool.
It's a good trick him, but he knew more than I thought he knew, so he didn't fall into my trap. So
wow, that's awesome. Good for him. Well, before we wrap it up, we like to ask all of our guests, who is a woman in basketball who has inspired you?
I grew up, I played basketball my life. I never was like, I'm going to be a basketball player. So I never you think about Lisa Leslie, you think about Sue Bird, you think about all of them, but they never really had an impact on me until I actually got really heavy into the broadcasting biz. And I actually got the opportunity to have a one-on-one with Skylar Diggins. And he was just amazing. Like, not only the player she is, she's amazing. She's beautiful. If you've ever, seen her on the outside, but the way she just talked to me and she was like, I appreciate you. And she's like, please don't give up on your dreams. Like, she was just very inspirational to me. And that's someone who I will always fight for. And she, I will always think of her as someone very highly because she works so hard on the court, off the court. And she really does care about people. So that is someone that I can say, a woman in the basketball industry who is definitely, I see a bright future for, but has inspired me heaps and heaps. And she's not, we're basically the same age, but she's just someone that I definitely look up to.
Awesome. Skylar Diggins. Okay. I will want to learn more about her now. Well,
yeah.
Ashley, we really appreciate you taking the time to talk with us tonight. Before we sign off, do you want to tell people how they can find your work?
Yeah, absolutely. I have a Twitter. I have an Instagram. They're both the same handle. Williams, Ash Dawn. I have a YouTube channel if you want to check out some of my cheesy interviews.
They're super fun. Wait, don't just call them cheesy because they're not cheesy. They're really fun. It's talking to these 17-year-olds, I hang out with a lot of teenagers and they're really hard. And let me just say, you do a great job of, steering them, and you ask them kind of funny questions to get them kind of off guard and relaxed. And they're really fun. We'll link to your YouTube page because I think people would really enjoy them.
Awesome. I appreciate you guys. This has been really fun. Really excited. Have some fun things coming up. So yeah, this is really great. I love to, talk about high school scene because not a lot of people cover it. So it's kind of an interesting thing, but,
Well, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me, you guys.
Well, that will do it for this edition of Women's Hoops and Talks, the What Podcast. We're hosted by Blazers Edge, which is part of the Almighty Baller Radio Network. If you like what you heard, please go to the Blazers Edge podcast feed on iTunes or Stitcher. Subscribe and rate and review while you're there if you'd like. We'd really appreciate that. We release new episodes of the What Podcast every other Thursday in that Blazers Edge feed. And in addition, you'll get the weekly podcast, which I host with my co-host, Dan Meringue. Or if you just want to get notified when the What Podcast episodes are released, you can follow us on Twitter at Hoops and Talks, and we will let you know every time we post a new episode. I am on Twitter at TCBBIGGS, and you can also follow Kendyl. She's at Kendyl Bennett 16. Thanks so much for joining us.